Okay, here we go, I guess. Today I'm going to be painting a trading card. This specific one is the pot of Duality, but I've already worked on it a little, so I'm going to catch you up so far. You'll need brushes. I'd prefer to also have some Q-tips. You'll learn why later. Paint and something to keep it in. For this, I'll use these apple barrels. They're like 50 cents at Walmart. They work pretty good for this. Just be prepared for lots of coats, but that kind of has to do with what you're painting on too. And some water. So, I've got my brushes set up here, and already picked out the paint for this specific card. So first, you want to pick out a card. Any of these work. We'll just go with, let's say, this fetch link, just to show you what I've done so far. I went ahead and done this white coat because it takes about 3 or 4 to get a good cover up of the rest of the card. So I'll set this over here for now. You want to take your white paint and you need a brush that's got pretty straight edges right here, just to get around the edges of the picture. So, sorry for the horrible angles, but this is new, so try to zoom in. You want to paint up until the picture of the card. You can see one coat, you can clearly still see the picture through it. That's why it takes so many. And so far I've only done Pokemon cards, except for this Yugioh card that I started a minute ago. But it usually works on any kind of trading card. You just gotta be careful, because since they are made out of cardboard, if you get it too wet or too much paint on it without letting it dry at once, it will bow a lot more, which means that the card will fold either this way or this way, which is really hard to fix. Sometimes you can put them in the freezer or take a hairdryer, depending on which way it bows. Heat or cold can fix it to an extent, but since this is paper, cardboard, and it's being fooled with, it's going to bow a little bit no matter what. But when you paint these, you don't want to use it in the actual game. I think it would be considered cheating if I'm not wrong, because once you paint it, you can clearly see which card it is, even in your standard 40 card Pokemon deck, or 60. Excuse that. So these are mostly for decoration or just collectors, or when you get trading cards, if you buy a pack, they're completely random depending on the set. So you might get 4 or 5 of the same ones, and Pokemon specifically, you can only have 4 of each Pokemon. So you'd have all those extras that you can't really use. So it's a good way to get rid of them or just fix them. You can see, you can clearly still see the words, but we'll let this dry and go ahead and switch to this pot of Duality, which has got 3 or 4 white coats of paint already on it, then clearly dry. You can still see a little bit, but it's enough that now your actual painting will cover it up. So if you do get out of the lines on this card, you could take a Q-tip and wet it, or if it gets on the back, see up here, wet the Q-tip and just go back and forth and get that right off. Now I'm sure you'll have a little bit, but it's not going to be anything horribly covering up the card. Okay. So now we're going to actually start on part of Duality. I'm going to get, first off, you want to decide what design you want to do. The easiest thing that I think is to just continue this background that is already on the card. Yu-Gi-Oh cards are mostly just main focus right here, so the backgrounds are kind of, one or two colors, not as much as a background. But if you take a look at Pokemon cards, you'll find a good example in here. Like this Pepler, it has a lot going on versus just this two-color scheme here. So you could extend this background, or you could kind of blur it out on the edges and then paint a solid color to link in together. That's just whatever you'd like to do. So for this one, I'm just going to extend what is already there. Sorry about the music in the background if you guys can hear that, but it's very difficult to work in complete quiet. I also have snacks because this kind of takes a while, so always good to have that. Okay, so I just have a lead pencil, but it doesn't really matter what you use, just don't make your lines too dark because you will be able to see them through the paint unless you overwhelm it. So it looks kind of circular, so I'm just going to keep that pattern going. And I'll raise this up in a minute so you can see better, but just going to keep this circular going. And if you can see on the edges here how certain colors go on, you want to extend those out, but you can stop them wherever you want. And you don't have to draw out everything, it's just nice to have a starting point. Especially if you're like me and did not take a picture or anything, which the card, if you could tell back on the fetchling, the background stops on the edges, so you wouldn't really know where to continue. That's kind of the point of the game. But anyways, you can see this background switches about in the middle, but the main picture covers up how they combine together. So on the edges, on the top and bottom here, that can be up to you how, if it's a complete straight line or if you wanted to kind of blend the colors together. This side is kind of blue and peaceful, while this side looks fiery and dangerous. So you might want to make those mix together somehow. if you can tell, this actually has a red circle background, but then the flames come up out of just certain spots. So you could continue on this circle pattern to begin with, and then once you paint that circle, go back and add the flames over top of it. So, I kind of got a rough idea of what we want to do here. Just simple. So now, I'm going to start, I think, with this blue side. So it's kind of light up until here, and then drips out into a darker blue. So we'll start with this white, get some silver brushes. I'll just start with this side. Get a lighter blue here. I picked this one, but you can use different colors depending on what designs that you want. I'm also going to pour out this and this bright blue. Just have a few different things to work with. It doesn't take much. Depending on the paint, it goes a long way. I did say earlier these specific apple barrels are really good for this, just because since it is a card, it's light, and you don't want to put anything too thick on it and easily tell what's the card and what's been painted on. But with the apple barrels, you can tell, but it's very difficult if you do a good job to tell where the paint starts and the actual card starts. But it's not very good quality paint for other things. So you could tell an acrylic paint is good depending on how thick it is. My personal favorite I learned at Moorhead in school is golden acrylics. They're very expensive. Apple barrels are 50 cents, while a tube the same size, if you can get a comparison here, a tube about the same size as this apple barrel would be probably $10. That being said, I've had these same apple barrels probably since Christmas, painting a lot, but the golden acrylics, since they are such high quality, they are very thick. And you run out of it pretty quickly if you use it all the time. It's really good though. It's definitely worth it if you want something that's going to last, which these will last a long time if you put a clear coat on it, which I use Mod Podge, which you can get at any Walmart or dollar store. But the golden acrylics, once you're done painting, they still have the shiny, glossy look, or matte, depending on which style you buy. It's different, without any clear coat or weather resistance, anything. I still recommend putting something on it though, just so it lasts longer. Now, if you can see on here, that's not quite the same color, this blue, compared to this gray that's lightening out. But the background is starting to get bluer and bluer. So I'm going to add some gray into this very close area and spread out more and more blue till we get out here. But you don't want to forget down here also with this circle and at the top. Now, the apple barrels I got at Walmart in Barstow is a very small town, very small Walmart, but pretty good. You can get them probably any Walmart actually, little or big. But the apple barrel, or the golden acrylics, maybe Hobby Lobby, but definitely Michael's would have them. You can go on Blick, it's an art website, and they have a lot of deals where you can get them cheaper than in regular stores also. They have a lot of sales, especially back to school type things. So, they also have recently added a cosplay section. So if you're into that, you can go order materials so that you can make things for costumes and face paint or any kind of thing like that for Comic-Cons or conventions or just Halloween. Halloween's coming up soon, so that's also a good opportunity. Now, if you can see here, I got paint on the edge. Now, it's hard to see, but right here at the top and down here at the bottom. So I got a Q-tip and just wet it and kind of, just like you would an eraser, any part that got on the card that you didn't want to. And that's good as new. So now that I got all this light blue area, I'm going to start adding this second blue right here. Just kind of adding it random at first. But you can already tell how much of a difference that is. So you want to add in the lighter blue in just a second and start to blend these together. So we'll take this second blue and add in some. I'm going to work on a better setup sometime, so it's easier. I know there's kind of a glare right now, but just to make it kind of easier to see. But this works for right now. Gonna add in some white too to break this up some. You can see I'm kind of rubbing in certain areas. That's just if I got too much paint, like the white, if I put too much white, I kind of use my fingers to smudge it, blending it together, just kind of to blend it out so it's not overwhelming. But I also have a really crappy brush that I had. It's this white one I got in a dollar store pack. and the bristles were really rough. So I cut a few of them, it's kind of hard to see against that, and use it to scrape. And it works very well to blend things together. If you do like this. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that rough ends is very good at blending things together. So, starting to get a little lighter. You don't want it too light because it is getting darker as the background goes out. So, but you don't want it too dark at once either. The beginning of the background seems to slowly blend out, so you don't want to do it all at once and ruin the pattern that's already going on. I'm just going to go ahead and extend this all the way out with the lightest blue. And then work in the darker colors. Gray, just because it's a little too bright for what we want right now. I used this one. And so it's even too dark for such a pale start out, so maybe mix in a little more white in this area. I'm going to start adding in a little bit of this darker blue. As much as I can get down, still using this bigger brush before we switch over to a smaller one. that's what I got so far. You can see the colors aren't quite the same yet. So now that we got a good layout, we're going to switch from this brush to a smaller one after I clean these out. You want to remember to use warm water when you clean them out, and never leave your brushes sitting in the cup because then they'll fray out, which is bad. I've got these little brushes for detail things. I think it was like $5 at Walmart, but they're pretty good for, which little brushes never last long because the end tips there start to fray off just on their own after use for a while. So be prepared to go through a lot of little brushes if you paint a lot. So now that we've got our main base coat here, we want to start adding littler lines and details to make these colors blend out to what they're supposed to be. And they don't look the same now because there's so much going on right here, so many different colors in one. That's white, blue, gray, dark gray, yellowish green, teal, all in one, that you can't possibly just use one color to even these out. I'm going to get this paint off the main part. And now bring out this wintergreen color. Message back here. Okay, so now got this little brush and took the plastic cap off, which is usually, I'll usually lose them after a day or two, but they keep them from fraying too bad as long as you don't put them on and accidentally hit one in half. Once you do that, you should just get new brushes because they won't last very long. And then you're going to start adding in just a few, so even that's too much, just to connect to this lighter colors. You can see the more that you add in, the more it starts to look like it's blending together. With acrylic paints, and most of the time oil painting too, depending on what you're making, the more layers you add in, the better it is, because you get each layer you add more and more details that you wouldn't notice if you just quit after the first few. Especially when you're doing like still lifes or landscapes. There's so much going on. When you paint, it takes a while. So if you're caught up in a project and you think it's done after working a couple hours, I always suggest that you just take a break. Maybe don't even start a new project. Just go sit down for an hour or so outside, or watch TV, or just do something that completely wipes your mind away from what you were working on. Because when you look at something for so long, you get tired of it. And that's just the nicest way to put it. You get drained from doing something for so long that everything starts to run together, and it's a giving up kind of feeling. You don't want to keep working on it after it gets to that point. So if you just take a break and do something else and then come back to it, you'll come back to a whole new piece. And it's a great way to open your mind up to see what needs to be done next. So for me, after I finish this blue side, I'm going to take a small break before I do the red-black side. But also when you're painting, it's good to have little snacks or something just to keep you going. I got cookies and gummies, so put in the camera also. But it's good to have something like that. At MSU, I had I think 30 minutes between one class and another, just for this specific class. I mean, you schedule your own classes, so you can pick what times you want to do what as long as they're available. But I didn't realize how hungry I would be in between classes, and a lot of other people were the same way, so my professor actually let us bring food in and eat while we painted too. So you never want to do anything halfway. If you're really tired or just don't feel good, it's going to affect how you feel about what you're working on too. That's a big part of things, is if you're not, and I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean happy, cheerful the whole time either. Sometimes your best work is when you're upset at something or you're feeling down. And other times it is happy. It's a great way to express whatever feelings you're having. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it's a great way to get things going. That being said, if I'm not in a painting mood, then I'm not going to make anything worth anything. So right now I'm getting just a little bit of this red apple because some areas have a little purple tint that I want to try to get rid of or to add into. You have to be careful with reds. I know that when most people think about colors, your most powerful, overwhelming color is black. You barely add any black to anything and it turns super dark all at once. But the most powerful color to do that is red. So with reds, you have to be extremely careful not to add too much at once because it will just take over everything. Makes a huge mess. And blues are kind of the opposite. Well, not opposite. They aren't underwhelming. But with blues, straight out of the tube, I think it's cyan, magenta, and yellow. So yeah, when you take cyan blue out of the tube, because that's the quote-unquote truest blue that you can have, even that isn't the actual blue that's supposed to be the primary color. With blues, you have to add white, or they're just so transparent that it's like you're not even using them. I mean, you get a blue tint, but you're never going to actually get what you need unless you add the white with it. That's also good to know if you try colored pencils. which I'm very horrible at, but I had some friends that are amazing with them and markers. If you use colored pencils correctly, anything that you do and crayons kind of work the same way. Whatever you make, no matter what colors or what design you do, after you're done with that, you want to take a white colored pencil and color over the whole thing. I might show that in a video another time, but somehow the white colored pencil blends together everything and makes it a more whole piece. Instead of like how you're usually coloring. I'll show with this lead pencil. If you color like this, even if you try to get in there, you can still see there's little white gaps in between, but that white colored pencil will take those and blend everything together so you won't have those. Not related, but still a good tip. It's good to clean the brush since I have been using it a little while. I got these little cheapo rags at Walmart for like $3 for 100 of them. So they're pretty good. Once you use one for so long, you can't really wash it to get all the paint out, and it gets hard because it's dry. So it's good to always have a few throwaway clean rags, for which one will last though for quite a long time. Make sure to fold it and use both sides and every little inch of it you can get, but they'll last quite a while for just one. So here you can see we're starting to get the colors together down here, but up here at the top the colors are kind of edging off. So we want to go through and fix those, which is just for the white coat I did left to right. So on the edges you kind of start to run out of paint. So that shows whenever you get to the later coats. You always want to make sure your coats are even, but even if you take the most precautions you can, they're not going to be perfect. But art's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be whatever you want it to be. I guess if you wanted it to be perfect, you can try, but perfect is a broad term and very hard to reach. So right now I'm just adding in these little white fray lines that you can see from the main pattern every now and then. Okay, so we're starting to get there. The corners here need some more blue. Branch out. Now if you got all your paint you're using out at the first like I have, instead of just a little bit at a time, which even if you get it out for the whole time, you don't need a lot. But I got out about anywhere from a dime to a quarter size piece, depending on how much of the color I think I'm going to use. While what I've got done dry, I will show you what happens. I always keep toothpicks nearby just because this happens a lot. But if you look at this one especially, you can see the top coat has a fine layer over it that's already dried. So there's not really a way that I know to prevent that except for just using the paint or mixing it up every now and then so that don't happen. But if you peel these back, then the paint underneath it is fine. And you can mix it together, but if it's already dried so much over the top, it's just going to make lumps. And you don't want the lumps in your paint because they will show up on your picture when you get it on the brush and so forth. But every now and then mix it up or just peel those layers away so that the inside paint doesn't start to dry as well, because then you couldn't use it. With thinner paints like these apple barrels, you can't really save them, which you don't need to get a lot out when you paint with these kind. But if you have a better, thicker paint and you get too much out, or you spend forever trying to mix a color and then end up having to go somewhere and not being able to use it, you can take a wet paper towel and cover it, or I actually use this little thing. You can put the paint in this and put the lid over it, and it will keep it for, it's just like putting it in in the container it came in. You can do that and have the paint for next time. Especially with those expensive paints, you do not want to get all that out and then be ruined and not be able to use it. You can also sometimes, depending on what you use, I just have a paper plate here, but if you use an actual plastic palette, you can put a wet paper towel over it and then put it in a big sandwich bag, or a Ziploc bag, and then keep it for, I don't have an exact, specific time frame, but for school, our classes were one certain class every other day. So if I painted on Thursday and put my stuff in a baggie and did that for my palette, come back to class on Tuesday after the weekend and it will still be fresh just like I got it out of the tube. Whatever condition it was in when I put it in the bag. If it's already dried up and you do that, it's not going to undry the paint. But if it's still wet, it will keep it wet for the next time. So that's a nice little trick to know. So right now I'm just trying to get rid of those little smudgy end marks where the paint wasn't as thick by blending those together, adding a few different little colors and coats and things like that. Don't want to forget about our green. It's barely, but any little bit helps. We'll check the back. So, in case you wasn't here for that part, just want to wet a Q-tip and just like a pencil eraser, go over get all that paint that got on the edges off. Alright, so this is it so far. Add in a few more little lines, which I will post a picture of this later on my Facebook and Instagram page. It's kind of hard to see it with the camera glare, but the colors are starting to really match up, so that's good. We only did this one side. I'm going to branch this out just a little more. And I will go over how to do the clear coat in a separate video. That way I can go ahead and paint this other side after my break, and then makes it a littler video. It's much easier to save these and upload them onto other things like Facebook or YouTube if you do save them smaller. Plus, it's easier to watch. I'd hate to have this, a 3 or 4 hour thing, so we'll stop them every now and then and switch so that it's easier to keep up with. Wish this is small, it wouldn't be. Painting takes a long time, but I couldn't do a 3 or 4 hour one project in one sitting. Well, unless it was in class. Classes are probably that long. I know I had some 3-hour long art classes, but even then, I stay after a lot. Once you get so, if you're really interested in what you're doing, or kind of like in your own little world when you're painting or doing any kind of hobby, you lose track of time. But especially with things like this or video games, I'm really bad about that. If you're stuck on a certain level or just got a new game and you stay up and play it overnight and don't even realize you've been doing it that long, and then so it's one of those kind of things. But that's not bad. It's a very nice hobby. Could be a lot worse. There are much worse things out there than spending your whole day making things. Okay. So, you can tell it's starting to get there. About half done. Okay, I guess I always sign mine on the bottom right corner. So I'm going to get some black paint out and go ahead and sign this side just to end the video. And then I will upload the other half in a little while after a break. Probably just a quick break. Maybe get some more snacks and stretch. But there we go. That's it. I will work on the other side next time. Thanks for watching.